Hi, everybody. Today we may be in for a long one. We'll see. Before I dive in, I want to share that this is probably going to be somewhat nuanced. And I wanted to start by sharing that because I wanted to just sort of remind everybody that the guidance that I share is really meant to be sort of like the general rule. So, in general, I think, these are at least good things that I found to follow and to guide me. But there are corner cases. And in life, especially as you get into more complicated situations, you will often find there's nuance and the context matters, like we've discussed. So, everything that I share with these general guidances for life are meant to be just that, just a general sort of view on things. And that as you experience different contexts, you may find that uh, this one doesn't make sense. Like sometimes I don't have time for exercise. Uh, Sometimes I don't have time to master the basics, and so on and so forth. But I wanted to start with that just so there's no confusion. I was discussing some of these with my colleagues this last weekend, and I wanted to just take a moment to drive that point home because we're going to get into some very specific details of things down here. And I am likely to forget to say a lot of these are weak claims. They're written sort of as strong claims, like ask questions, but it doesn't mean like always ask questions. Although I think that in many cases, asking questions is usually a good kind of approach for things. That aside, for today's discussion, we're going to first get back into the discovery of the number zero and talk about the foundations of mathematics and potentially algebra. And it seems as though I have made a mistake and I got perhaps the origins of the number zero wrong. And so we're going to look at that. And I love that. I don't love making mistakes, but I love learning. And so anytime I make a mistake and I realize I've made a mistake, I really do seek out these failures. And I think that this is, while I try not to fail uh, when doing things like this, and I'm saying lots of things, I'm of the mindset that I'm bound to say something that's wrong. And it's probably practical for me to understand going in. I'm not going to get everything exactly right. And then when I make the mistakes, my experience has been try to identify those mistakes as fast as possible, be responsible and own those mistakes, essentially be accountable, and then correct and fix those mistakes. And then try not to make those mistakes again. So hopefully we'll get an example of that in real time for me, recorded time for all of you, of me kind of eating my own dog food. Okay. After that, we're going to get into these virtues. And I've grouped them together because I was discussing this with a couple of my colleagues, and it seems as though there may have been some confusion on what exactly these things mean, and aren't they a little bit contradictory? Like this whole uh, how do you avoid reliance on external validation, yet you're listening to others that are worth listening to? And it's hard to understand how these kind of like dovetail together if they do. So I'm going to try to take a stab at explaining this And this may take some time. I guess we'll see when we get there. But my hope is that after we do a little bit more dissection on this, we'll have a little bit more clarity, all of us, including myself, on what these things mean, or at least what they mean to me. And we're probably not going to talk about songs and music in this one, but I wanted to leave NF on here and Jan Blomqvist, just in case some of you missed it in the last one or two episodes. I'm super fan of both of these artists. Definitely check it out. Question mark. Asking a question, not a command. Okay, so let's get started. One of the comments I made in an earlier VOD was that I was under the impression that it was a Persian man that discovered zero and was sort of the father of algebra. And I'm going to try to explain why those two things are very much intertwined in my mind. That, well, minimally, without the number zero, algebra is very hard to do. And the reason why algebra is so important to me is I think that programming can be considered as some form of algebra. Like algorithms, I think, are an extension of algebra. We have variables and we do assignment and things like this. We can have mathematical functions that are being executed and so on and so forth. We can also have other types of functions, but I see a lot of parallels in software code as it relates to algebra. I think that maybe the two key things that I see strong overlap with is first order logic and algebra. And so those two areas are very interesting to me as a software developer. So algebra is super important, and therefore the number zero is very important to me. Okay, so it turns out after doing a little digging, there seems to be a number of people that argue it was actually a couple Indian individuals that are credited for the discovery of the number zero. Now, when we go down this rabbit hole, it seems as though maybe there's some folks that think like there are these Babylonians that were doing it. This is somewhere in here. We'll probably get to that at some point. But I asked Google what it thought. I said, did an Indian person discover zero and create algebra? And it says, yes. Indian mathematicians made significant contributions to both understanding and use of zero and the development of algebra. Okay, cool. And then these two individuals, I'm probably going to not say their name right, but Aryabhata and Brahmagupta are particularly noted for their work with zero, while Aryabhata is also recognized for his early work in algebra. And again, without the number zero, very hard to do algebra. Some would argue impossible to do algebra. So this is like the precursor. It's sort of like very hard to do multiplication unless you first have addition, if that makes sense. Okay, so we followed this story, and we start with Aryabhata and zero, 5th century mathematician, astronomer, credited with using symbol for zero in his astronomical calculations. He also understood the concept of zero as a placeholder in his place value system. While not explicitly defining 0 as a number, his work laid the groundwork for its later formalization. That's cool. So that's cool. I mean, that's like, as we were discussing on this channel, oftentimes when you're on the frontier of science, definitions are not as crisp as people oftentimes think once things are already defined. So when we think of the number 0 now, we have this somewhat precise and clear understanding. But for areas where we are literally in that discovery phase, like we are, let's say, with advances in AI, and in particular, advances in machine programming, we are literally defining it right now. It's sort of happening live. And just a few years ago, we didn't even have really the 3 pillars of machine programming. We didn't even have the word machine programming. And it wasn't until maybe 2018, 2017, 2018, we didn't have transformers, or at least we didn't have a word for transformers. And after we had transformers, then we moved into spaces like language models, large language models, small language models. And so you can see, and there's still more to come. Like, we just got this more recent thing of MCP. So we're figuring this out on the fly. And so this type of thing here is very common when you're on the bleeding edge. At least that's been my experience. So I would still give Arabata, if I apologize for axing that, I would still give this individual some degree of credit for expressing it as a placeholder, even if we don't have a formal definition, because it's the intuitions that are helping us evolve into a more precise definition. And we tend to need intuitions first before we can start to really nail things down. Okay, next we have Brahmagupta and 0. Brahmagupta, a 7th century mathematician, formalized the use of 0 in mathematics. He defined 0 as a number on its own and established rules for arithmetic involving 0, including addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. He also named 0 shunya or sunya, which is the Sanskrit word for emptiness or nothingness. Again, I apologize if I'm axing this stuff. Now, this is quite important. And I would like to, I'll go even a little bit further, is that before I was talking about algebra, algebra is in many senses an extension of the core foundational mathematics of arithmetic. Arithmetic is actually more fundamental, at least in my mind, than algebra, because without core arithmetic operators, such as the ones seen here, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then eventually equality, you can't even do algebra. So this claim here about the development of algebra, maybe that's true, but this is actually in some sense bigger. This is more fundamental than even just algebra. So this is why I said over here, these individuals, I think, could be credited more than just the foundations of algebra, but these are foundations of mathematics, which demonstrates an even larger degree of impact in my mind. Okay. Arabata is also recognized for his contributions to algebra. He's credited with the title Father of Algebra due to his understanding and application of algebraic principles in his astronomical calculations. He also used algebraic concepts to calculate the value of pi and solve linear and quadratic equations. Okay, that's pretty awesome. So very interesting stuff. And I think we've got, what does this button do? Is this like a citation? Okay, let's keep going. Now, this is the individual that I was thinking about when I was saying I thought it was this Persian man, scholar, that is credited with the creation of algebra. And so we have the Persian scholar Al Khwarizmi, probably getting that wrong, often called the father of algebra, was heavily influenced by the work of the Indian mathematicians, including Aryabhata and Brahmagupta. He adopted the Indian decimal system, which relied on the use of zero, and developed and popularized algebra. Okay, so now perhaps you can see where this is getting a little confusing. We've got Aryabhata, who is credited as the father of algebra, but then we've also got our Persian scholar, who's often referred to as the father of algebra. Now, I mean, maybe this is Gemini. I mean, maybe we have multiple fathers of algebra. I think that's possible. It's sort of like Jeff Hinton, Yoshio Bengio, and Jan LeCun all winning the Turing Award and being known as what, the godfathers of deep learning or something. Cool. That's fine by me. I don't know that we have to have a single person, but this is, I think, where my confusion was coming from. Is I had read about this individual, and somehow I hadn't heard about, or maybe I hadn't, I just forgot these other scholars. But this is awesome, and I really appreciate the insight and the comment that somebody made. I actually responded back and I said I'd probably do a VOD describing this. And so here's a little bit of what I've learned. But I want to go a little bit further just because I think it's worth diving in a little bit more. And let's watch this short YouTube video from this guy. And he's asking, did Aryabhata really invent zero? Did Indians invent the zero? Now, keep in mind, it's cool to know the history here and give people the proper credit. Ultimately, the thing that I'm the most excited about is that we have the number zero and we can do really cool things. But we can have this learning moment, and let's watch this minute clip and see what this individual has to say. I'm going to mute my mic and hit play.
Who invented zero? Indians, Persians, or aliens? Some people argue that the Babylonians were the first to use a symbol for zero, while others credit Indian being the two pioneers of developing a number system that included zero. The use of zero as a placeholder and in arithmetic calculations can be tracked back to ancient Indian mathematics, which had a number system with a symbol for zero. The Indian mathematician Brahmagupta is credited with formalizing the rules of arithmetic, including zero. Although the exact origin of zero is unclear, we know that zero laid the foundation for evolution of math as we know today. Follow Banzu for 365 days of math.
Excellent. So we get some additional insight here, and that's great. I also went a little bit down this rabbit hole that I want to look at. This is mostly just to see different perspectives, hear different opinions. And just to be clear, if I were doing this like as a PhD for a peer reviewed paper, I'd probably try to find some very strong evidence that's in sort of a peer reviewed article, some literature, something that is not just on the internet, but since we've got the internet available to us, it feels like we can just go down this path a little bit to see what people say. So this is the who invented zero? We're gonna go. This is mathnasium. It's cool. We're learning about math. So these guys say you can trace it back to the Babylonians in 300 BCE, and I think that's what that other gentleman was referring to. So you've got that, but they say, however, this was not yet the zero we know today. It was merely a placeholder and lacked the philosophical depth of a number. Cool. Then we have India, the birthplace of zero as a number. The true invention of zero, both as placeholder and number, occurred in ancient India. Around the 5th century CE, the Indian mathematician and astronomer Aryabhata used a symbol for zero in his astronomical calculations. However, it was Brahmagupta, another Indian mathematician, who formalized the use of zero in 628 CE. In a seminal work, I'm going to skip that one. Brahmagupta described zero as a number and laid out rules for arithmetic operations involving zero, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication. That is enormous. This is much bigger than just algebra. This is like a game-changing moment, and it's one of those things where I think we take a lot of this for granted. But if you think about the entire space of engineering, science, the whole STEM domains, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, without this stuff, essentially none of that exists. You really can't do any of those things. So this is really, really important. I think it can't be overstated how fundamentally disruptive this is. Brahmagupta's insights were groundbreaking. For the first time, zero is recognized as a distinct entity that could be used in calculations, transforming mathematics into a more robust and universal tool. Yes. So we go a little bit further. The spread of zero from India, the concept of zero spread to the Islamic world during the 8th and 9th century CE. Scholars like Al-Khwarizmi and Al-Kindi translated Indian mathematical texts into Arabic, incorporating zero in other studies. They're often regarded as the father of algebra. And again, so this is probably where I kept seeing this father of algebra. If I were to, based on what I understand today, assuming that the information that we're getting is correct, what I would probably do is I'd probably refer to Brahmagupta as not the father of algebra, but the father of mathematics, which is a broader category than just algebra. And then I would credit Khwarizmi as the father of algebra, which is a subset of the field of mathematics. That would be, again, this is very nuanced. I'm sure I'm not getting this exactly right. This is kind of the way that I would think about it. So introduction of zero to Europe. It came through these Islamic scholars. By the 12th century, the Italian mathematician Fibonacci included zero in his book. And we have the Arabic number system. And so this is also one of the reasons why I thought it was originated from these Persian scholars, is that the number system that, as I understand it today, is an Arabic number system. That's basically what we use sort of universally. And I also want to share that what I'm trying to do right now is explain this from a scientific perspective. There's no political anything in this. This is just trying to understand what happened and how this came to be. So if your mind is going elsewhere, keep in mind we talk science and technology here. We don't get into some of these other things. Okay. The power of zero. Today, zero is indispensable. It serves the foundation of algebra, calculus, computer science. Yes, it does. Enables us to understand concepts of nothingness and infinity. Zero plays a crucial role in binary code, language of computers, making it a cornerstone in the digital age. Yes. So this is another reason why I'm so fascinated by this, because without the number zero, computer science as a field is like, we just can't do it. It's more fundamental, I would argue, than even the binary base number system, which, by the way, is another interesting idea. I think for those who don't have background in this, there is this notion that the way all numbers work is essentially like 1 to 10, and then everything is a power of 10. And that's true to some degree, but really what that is that is a number system that has a base, the base number system of 10 digits, decimal. But you can have a number system that has basically any base. So you can have a number system that has a base of 2, that's binary. It could have a number system that has a base of 8, that's octal. A base of 16, that's hexadecimal, and so on and so forth. So when you get into number theory and I think discrete mathematics, you start to explore this, and this can be really powerful, and it may be a bit jarring for those of you who have only sort of thought in decimal at first, to then be like, wait a second. So you can have another number system, and when you get into this other number system, you don't stop counting at 9. You then, it's like A, B, C, like what? And yeah, so that's how you represent, or how we currently represent things like in hex. So if you see a number that usually starts with a 0x, that's oftentimes indicating that this is going to be hex. And then in hex, you can go all the way to like 0 to F, I believe. And it may look like it is a string, but it's actually a number. And so an example of that is you could have one that people use is like this. This looks like it's a string, but this is actually like hex. And then there's other ones. Again, looks like it's a string that actually a number. So, and these different number systems can be really valuable in different spaces. Like the part of the reason why binary is so powerful for computer systems is the sort of separation of signal for transistors is can be captured at a high level, where you have sort of this off state and then this on state. So 2 states essentially. It's more complicated than that. This is a simple way of thinking about it. And therefore, because you only really have 2 states, well, now you can use this as a base 2 number system, which is binary. And then from there, you can do all kinds of things. And you can generally translate any number system from one base to another. So you can translate binary to decimal and decimal to hex and all that good stuff. Cool. So we're getting into some general computer science. And by the way, I'm just recalling this stuff off the top of my head, so I'm sure I'm getting some of these details not perfectly correct. So my apologies, and feel free to correct me in the comments, and I'll add another errata to the mistakes on this. And so I went a little bit further, and I started to look at why we can't have algebra without 0, just to see what the AIs said. And Gemini says we can't have algebra without 0 because 0 is essential for several core concepts, including the additive identity, representing empty quantities and acting as a placeholder in place value systems. Without 0, we wouldn't have the full set of integers. The foundation for solving polynomial equations or finding zeros is quite important. And the ability to represent and manipulate numbers in a way that allows for the abstraction and generalizability that algebra offers, right? So yes, as we discussed. So yeah. And then I think I had one more, which was, oh, this was just some fun site. Jersey College for Girls. I don't know. It just showed up on my list. What if there was no zero in the world? It's just kind of enjoyed the way that this article started. Uh, Having no zero would unleash utter chaos in the world. I think it would. I think it absolutely would. So yeah, it's good that we have this number. Yeah, and right, the finance industry, right? It'd be like the whole infrastructure of the world would come crumbling down. And I think that yeah, so the zeros number in India, we kind of got into this stuff. We have our friend Brahmagupta, and I suspect our other. Okay, maybe not, but cool. And then zero in the Middle East over the next few centuries, comes from zero spread out to China, the Middle East. Yeah, so zero reached Baghdad, where it became part of the Arabic number system. Persian mathematician used a little circle in calculations if no number appeared in the tens place. The Arabs called this circle sifr, or empty. Zero was crucial to Al-Khwarizmi, who used it to invent algebra in the 9th century. Yeah, so again, mostly just trying to clarify on my potential confusion. Uh, whoever gets credited with it is maybe a little bit less important to me, but it does seem as though the original, the original zero work really derived from India or the Babylonians, and it was only later utilized in the Middle East with these Persian mathematicians that then seem to be repetitively credited with the invention of algebra. So I think that's all very cool stuff, and I feel like oh, we have Rene Descartes in here. Oh, yeah, I have lots of thoughts about him. Um, a super smart guy, but complicated. Uh, anyway, so now we've gone down that rabbit hole. I definitely made a mistake on at least the origins of zero, the origins of algebra. Um, I think we know what we just read, and we can all draw our own conclusions. But I'm glad that we have zero, and I'm glad that we have algebra in particular for selfish reasons for computer science and coding. Excellent. And I'm learning from a mistake. I make many mistakes. And as I've mentioned many times, I will likely continue to make many mistakes. And my goal is to try to own them very publicly and from a very intellectually honest place, and then learn from them as quickly as possible. So thank you, GTTers, for sharing this with me. And please keep leaving comments if I get other stuff wrong. Okay. Now we can go to the second part, this part. And this is going to have a little nuance to it, but we spoke a little bit about this whole it's a gift if busy people are mean to you. And I think I received a lot of private feedback on that, and it seemed like a number of people thought it was interesting and a different perspective. But I think at least the people who reached out to me shared things like they appreciate the nuanced perspective and how they liked that it was framing things in a way that helped them possibly have a little bit more empathy for people who may be short with them but are still communicating with them, and they're short with them but maybe not because they're just mean people, but because they're just very busy. And then there's the upside of they're still giving you their time. So, with that being said, I went down a few rabbit holes about this external validation and how how does this sort of coincide with we we harden ourselves to uh, various forms of adversity, like maybe people not giving us a message the way we want it, but there's still a message of something we can learn. But then we have this, not relying on external validation, which then may argue, wait, so if the mean people are telling us stuff, one, it's good in some sense that we don't rely on their validation, but in some sense, we're still maybe listening to them. And so, is that saying that we're relying on external validation? And then, what about this whole what does it mean to have someone that it's worth listening to? And again, all of this I think is very nuanced and contextual, and it's many shades of gray. But I'm going to try to dive into this and share minimally at least what I think and how I try to view these things. And a lot of this really is just to, like build bridges with people that you would want to build bridges with. Building a really hard exterior to where you can be more of a stoic and people can't really necessarily get under your skin, but you can still learn from them. And then also this fusion of being introspective, not relying on external validation, but still having this notion where there are people that are worth listening to, and those people might be in your inner circle, right? It's very complicated how this all works together. And I'm probably going to get this wrong, but let me try to take a stab at this, and then we can have a more discourse. But I want to start by saying that one of the things that can really help with this is coming in with a degree of confidence. There was an Instagram video that I saw a couple days ago, and they were talking about how when you work with people that are very confident, that have a very strong growth mindset, and you give them feedback that is meant to help them grow, they often will be very grateful for that feedback, and they won't necessarily take a defensive posture because they'll often view this as an opportunity to become better. And this is also a demonstration of confidence, that the people that tend to be more receptive to feedback that challenges them in a way that could help them grow, what I generally find is those people tend to be more confident. And they also, in general, tend to be the people that will grow faster than others because they're not married to this idea of needing to be right, wherever that one is. Yeah. They just don't really care about being right. They just want to grow and be better and do more stuff. And so maybe one example of that is when this GT tier made this comment that basically said, my claims about the origin of zero are wrong. It didn't come from Persia. It came from India. I finally got time to look into it, and I think that this person's right. But notice that if I'm not listening, if I'm not, where is this one? If I'm not doing this, and instead I'm spending more time trying to argue and defend my position, I'm likely losing the opportunity to grow. And this is one of the issues that we come into here is that for some of these things to really work, I think you if you can develop an internal confidence, a quiet confidence, I think that these things will come more naturally to you. And one of the people that I work with that I'm wildly impressed by their quiet confidence and their ability to be introspective and their growth mindset is Taylor Dolezal. Is I've been working with Taylor now for um, almost 3 years, but he's been working with me at Merle for um, since January, and we're grooming him for higher level positions, and his growth is phenomenal. And one of the things I have incredible admiration for with Taylor is his ability to take feedback in a completely open way, with a completely open mind. But I have in the 4 or 5 months I've been working with Taylor directly, and I literally communicate with him almost on a daily basis. I have never, strong claim, never heard him try to argue and take a defensive posture for an indefensible position. Not once. And keep in mind, like I try really hard to be careful with the feedback that I give. So I tend to try to only give feedback after I have a high degree of confidence that this feedback will help someone. So usually when I first start working with people, whether it's students or employees or colleagues, I won't have feedback because I don't know anything. I don't know what they're good at, what they're not so good at, and so on and so forth. Like I have to learn. And then over time, I start to see. And so, as I explained with Taylor, what I do is I talk about how I do a 360 uh, view of the people that I'm grooming, and I will walk around them and I'll kind of poke them in these different ways to try to find out where the weaknesses are in their armor. And I remember when I was first talking to Taylor, I think that he had this I don't want to say that he had like uh this idea. I'm trying to think of how to say this. I think the way Taylor said it was that he tries very hard to be introspective, and so he feels a pretty good sense of his weaknesses, and I do think that's right. I do think that he does have a pretty good sense of his weaknesses. What he may have not had is necessarily an environment that would not only help him see those weaknesses, and we all have them. I have them myself, right? Like uh, this was a mistake that I made, and this is a very clear weakness that I have. This is why this stays on here. Is this is maybe one of my biggest weaknesses. I need to check myself on a constant basis, and I don't like this. I don't like it. This is a bad habit that I have, and I'm trying to resolve it, which is why I keep it on here, and I'm probably going to keep it on here for many months until I feel like I really have this under control. And the truth is, this is one of like I think we all have uh, different things that we are more susceptible to for whatever reason. And this is maybe the one that I'm more susceptible to. Uh, what I think, just to give a little explanation on why I think I struggle with this, is I place a lot of value on growth mindset and introspection and becoming a better version of yourself. And so when I'm being mentored and I have a lot of really incredible mentors that work with me, their bar for mentorship is really high in that they expect that they're going to tell me something one time and I will have mastered it. So I make a mistake, they're going to tell me exactly one time and I'm never going to make that mistake again. And this is a hard and high bar to reach. And I don't know that I necessarily have really reached it, but I definitely strive to reach it. And when this has been the environment that I'm in, it's easy, I think, for me to replicate that and have the same expectations for the people then that I mentor. But I also think that that's a bit unfair, that I think it is a little harsh to expect that everyone will get it on the first try. And I will say some people really do. Like, again, Taylor Dolezal. He taught me how to say his last name correctly. I've been saying it the wrong way for like 3 years. I'm learning new things all the time. Thanks, T. So with T, in almost all the cases, I tell him one time, "Hey T, this is something that we do. Can you do this?" He does it. It's literally like one time he synthesizes the new information, and I'm coming at him with a ton of things. I mean, if we were to, next time he's on, I'll ask him how many things I've asked. I mean, like, this is nothing compared to the list that I give him. It's easily over 100 things, and some of these are not easy. But there was one that he I don't know that he struggled with, but he pushed back on, and it was this one. It was asking questions. And it's interesting because asking questions is actually not on here, but it's part of the Merley Manifesto. And I remember talking to him and reminding him, like, "Hey, T, you know, like, you're interacting with these people, but you aren't asking questions." And he said, "Yeah, I know that. I actually wanted to talk to you about this because I feel like there might be a difference of opinion." And by the way, I think that's incredibly graceful. What I think T was leaning toward, as he shared with me, is he had received feedback that asking questions could be seen as a sign of weakness. And I've heard this before too. And I do not buy into this at all. The people that I work with at places like this and other places where you have some of the best and brightest people, some of the most amazing thought leaders, we all ask questions. None of us that are, at least in my circles, come in thinking that we know everything, and they certainly do not dole out commands. No. No, no, no. Even if they're in a position where they could be commanding, they will instead ask questions. And so in the manifesto, in the Merley Manifesto, this is how it's framed. It's framed that we prefer to ask questions rather than issue commands. And the idea there is, like, let's say for a moment that I'm like the big boss at Merley. In theory, I could just issue commands all day and say, "Taylor, do this. Urs, do this. Paul, do this. Ashish, do this. Do this, do this, do this." I think that my incredible team of amazing people would likely all quit, because these are highly intelligent people, and I don't know anyone, literally anyone, even my dog. Okay, maybe he's the exception. Maybe he likes it. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. The reason why I say maybe he likes it is so he can straddle the line. Is I'll be like, "Sit, stay," and he'll be like, "Okay, let's see how far I can push the boundaries this time. What can I get away with?" So he likes it in a kind of devious way. That's what I mean, that he might like it. But Merle aside, the dog Merle, not the company Merle, I think most of the people that I've worked with, uh, I haven't found a single person that actually likes being ordered around. And so I think a better way to interface with people is ask them if they can do something. And I think that this does a number of different things. The first is it's a sign of respect. It demonstrates to people that you are giving them the opportunity to say no or interject, share an opinion. It's a sign of deference, right? Like, so we'll add this ask questions. Uh, questions are a sign of deference and a sign of true confidence. So, what I mean by a sign of true confidence is so the deference is when you ask a question like, what do you think about this? This is a sign of respect because you're demonstrating one, curiosity in someone else's views, and so that's curiosity. The second is deference, is you are now giving them the opportunity, you're yielding to them. What do you think, T? How do you feel about this? Can you help me with this? Are you available for this? Knowing that they could say no, or they could say, well, I could do it, but I'm in the middle of this stuff. I find that this type of interaction tends to build bridges. I think it also tends to build trust, and it opens up collaboration and communication. When you just issue commands, it's not a discussion. Do this. Just do this. It's almost like you're saying, I don't want to hear what you think. I just want this done. Now, as I mentioned before, there's nuance here. There may be cases where you need to say, we need to do this. We need to get this done. Let's just do this. Definitely. Those one-off cases should be handled when they arise, and they definitely arise in my life. When I'm teaching at the university, I'll say, this is due at this date, and this is the due date. And it's not a question. It's basically that's when it's due. And so either you do it or you don't. And if you don't do it, then you're going to get like a 0, or you do it, and then we'll see how well you do. But with those aside, when you're working with people, I think that even in cases when you can order people around, I generally think that it's a bad idea. And keep in mind, I've been in situations where people have been reporting into me since I was 25, and I'm 50 now, so 25 years, Nautica and various professorships and running labs and running engineering teams, running companies. And this is one of the core principles that I follow. It's a game changer, and it's so simple. It's so simple. It really doesn't take that much work. Oftentimes, the way I'll structure it is I'll have a team meeting where I'll meet with an individual and say, hey, okay, so we're going to be working on this thing, and we really need to drive this, whatever, this release, this sale, this feature, and I'm shooting for this. Here's what I think it should look like. Okay, now, what do all of you think? Question mark. And then give them the opportunity to say, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, your timetable is way too aggressive, or no, this won't work because this thing over here. And oftentimes that show of deference will teach me. It'll be illuminating. I'll often learn things that I didn't know. And I'm not the knower of all things. But there's a ton of stuff going on at Merle. There's a ton of things going on with my various collaborators. I only know what I know. And so I may have a plan for something, but oftentimes other people have more information that they can share that then help me make better decisions. And so if you don't ask questions, you may never get that additional information that you currently don't have. So this can be really important to help you grow and learn more. because it's a sign of deference, you're actually looking for feedback. It's also, like, again, a sign of respect. It's an incredible way to build bridges. At least that's been my experience. The other piece to it that I think is also really important to note is, in my mind, it's also a strong sign of true confidence. People who I think are oftentimes insecure won't ask questions. And I think there's a variety of reasons. One, they won't ask questions because they're afraid of showing that they don't know something, which is unfortunate because if you don't know something and you can't ask questions, like, how do you learn? Right? Like, if we look at just what I did, so I got the comment that these Indian scholars and mathematicians invented zero. And so what did I do? I started asking questions. Did an Indian person discover zero? This is a question. I didn't put the question mark, but this is a question. And you can see, because the AI is saying, yes, in answer to your question, they did. I'm asking questions. And then I asked this other question. Why can't we have algebra without zero? Well, here's the answer to that question. Again, I'm being lazy, not putting the question mark, just because I'm lazy. But I'm asking questions constantly. And, like, here's another question. What if there was no zero? These are all questions. And questions are the key to knowledge. They're such an incredible way to learn. But generally, I find that only people that have true degrees of confidence will ask questions because they're okay not knowing. They're okay saying, I don't know everything, but I want to know. So, what do you think? What is the answer to this? And that, hi, everybody. Okay. I want to share that my machine just crashed, but I love OBS. It saved the day. So Windows crashed, and when I first rebooted my machine, I went to go look for the video file, and it was 0 size bytes. And I thought, oh no, I just lost an hour worth of recording. Not the end of the world, but that would be kind of sad. And then I did some quick Googling on this. PC hard crashed during recording. How do I repair it? And it's like, no, just find that file. And they're like, oh, you're only going to lose the last couple seconds. And so I went back and I looked at the file, and it was 0 size bytes. And I was like, okay. And I clicked on it, and it seems to be mostly intact. And now we can, I think, as you were just seeing right here, this is our guy. So, phew, thank goodness. Okay. So I don't know where it ended, but I'm going to supposedly it just loses the last couple of seconds. So I'm going to do a quick repeat of this. And I was on this point about questions, I believe, sign of true confidence, and that asking questions is the way to get knowledge. And you tend to need confidence to be okay with not knowing. And the truth is, like, none of us really are the knower of all things. Or if those people exist, again, I don't know who they are. And I hang out with some pretty knowledgeable people. So this is kind of the precursor, the confidence. And what I've found is confidence. Yeah, I was going to add, by the way, I think maybe what caused it to crash is I was connecting my tablet because I was going to do some drawing on it. And so I started to edit this file because I was going to type something here, and then that's when it just died. So what I was going to write here is, you're quietly confident, and it's belief in yourself through data. So we've discussed this before, I believe, and it's not this sort of wild belief that your parents may give you. You can do anything, Timmy. Just believe in yourself and you can do it. Okay, that's cool. I appreciate the the unwavering support, but in the real world, it doesn't exactly work like that. You can't just believe that you're going to be an Olympian and then show up and be an Olympian. What you can do, though, is set your mind to something and then through effort and persistence and training and hard work, move toward that and accumulate data that then supports all of the things that you're hoping for. And then you can see an evolution of these things as you progress and then gain confidence. And so it's not just, I think, wild belief in manifesting things that you have no business manifesting. Like, I'm going to be as strong as Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then snap your fingers, and then you're not. And like, why not? Well, it's going to take work. But with enough effort, well, maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger is not a good example because I think he was doing some other things that you might not want to do for health reasons. But I think you get the point that if you set your mind to something and you work toward it in a persistent fashion and you start to collect data, that can really give you belief in yourself. And this can help create confidence. Another part of this that I think is really important is that you have an inner circle that helps you value the right things. That having an inner circle that believes in you, but believes in you not for the right reasons, believe in you for these immutable characteristics that you didn't necessarily have anything to do with, these being your gifts rather than your accomplishments. Those might not be the right things to praise because you can't improve those. And you really didn't do anything to deserve those other than just have good parents or genes or something. But the accomplishments, those are yours. Those are things that you've done. And so you can see how the inner circle part can be really important on this confidence part. Getting the right inner circle, I think, can help you hone in on having people that you're around that see your value, not just for your immutable characteristics, not just for your gifts, which you can be thankful for, but the actual things that you've done, which are really the things I think to focus on. What technical achievements have you made? What software have you written? What articles have you created? What music have you composed? Things that you have actually done that have required effort and work and skill that you've developed. And then through the development of those things, you then have data, and that increases your belief, and then that gets you your confidence. So once you have this, then I think you can start to go down this path of asking questions and know that it's okay if you don't know. And once you can get beyond this, then you can start to do, I think, other things. Like maybe introspection is the first piece. But I wanted to put introspection here because I wanted to lean into this notion how these three things are kind of intertwined. That if you're introspective, I think that you have some sense of your strengths and your weaknesses. And then this can help you become less reliant on external validation. And just for clarity's sake, I don't mean that you don't require any external validation. In fact, I think that having some external signals can be helpful, because oftentimes people, like, if you haven't fully mastered introspection, you may not be able to see your blind spots. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But even if you can, having external input, not validation, but external input, can help you figure out how to overcome some of those weaknesses, perhaps. What this really means, what I mean by this, is that if all the things that you do are done so you can receive validation in other people's eyes, I think this is a very dangerous path. This is the path that I think leads you to not having a life of meaning. I think it can lead to really bad mental problems. I think it can lead to you being able to be manipulated and bullied and do things that you don't want to do, things that are not part of who you are. All of this stuff just because you are beholden to external validation. And I think it's even worse than that, because in today's world where there's a lot of social media that I think maybe isn't necessarily all of it is moving us in the right direction. And that's okay, right? I understand that different people want to talk about different things, and it's not always going to be puppy dogs and rainbows. But I think that there's a lot of sort of internet meanness that goes on in the world today. I think that we're starting to grow as a society, as a community, as like a global population, to understand that no, the internet doesn't have to be like this. And there's likely going to still be mean people and just sort of the mavericks, but you don't necessarily have to be beholden to them. And I think once you can detach yourself from external validation, I think you can start to move into that direction. So, for example, I will get downvotes on my videos all the time. I don't think there's a single video that I've posted that I don't get downvotes. And I expect it. I actually get a little nervous when a video starts out. A lot of my videos start out and it's like 100% thumbs up. And I think, yeah, people aren't paying attention enough, because some people should be upset by this. Because I'll say things that, like, for example, if you're someone that doesn't ask questions and you don't have the ability to be intellectually honest and see the value of this, this is probably going to make you angry. Because again, if you're a logical, rational person, like if we went over here and we Googled this, let's put this in incognito. Where is cognito mode? Okay, let's see. Well, let's say this. Is asking questions a good thing or a bad thing? Okay, I have no idea what this is. Is asking questions beneficial? Oh, yeah, I'm not a robot, man. Come on. Okay, that's a tractor. That's a tractor. By the way, just so you know, with the CAPTCHA stuff, oftentimes it's not even you clicking on the right picture. It's the mouse movement, just as an aside. I mean, it could be both, but I know a little bit about some of the algorithms. Okay, here we go. Is asking questions beneficial? Yes, asking questions is generally beneficial because it facilitates learning, clarifies understanding, and stimulates critical thinking. It also helps to identify areas of uncertainty, encourages deeper exploration, can even lead to new insights and breakthrough, blah, blah, blah. Promoting critical thinking, clarifying, engaging in dialogue. Questions can initiate conversation and facilitate collaborative problem solving, building rapport. Asking questions demonstrates curiosity and genuine interest in others' perspectives, which can build stronger relationships. Okay, like basically all the things that we've been talking about. And no, I have never Googled this before, but I have read many books on this and been educated by people far smarter than me. that have taught me these things. The one person most notably is my ex-wife, Professor Lori Peak. She was the first person that really was like, gee, Justin, you really don't ask questions. And that is a terrible, well, she was far more graceful than that, but she encouraged me to ask questions, and for all the reasons that we just read. However, if you don't ask questions and you lack introspection and you lack confidence, this may make you angry because you may be defiant and say, oh, Goju's an idiot. I disagree, downvote, leave a negative comment. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. This is part of the process in my mind, is that there are going to be people that are at different spaces in their life that are not going to be able to take constructive feedback or to be able to hear, like, I don't want to say like the truth, but be able to see good guidance that is intended to be helpful for that reason. Instead, they'll see it as you're trying to change me, you're trying to challenge me, I'm not good enough. And it's none of those things. It's just us trying to be the best version of ourselves. Or at least that's my mind. That's the way that I generally try to treat these things. So when you get beyond this and you have this confidence, then we get into this introspective point. And if you have introspection, the notion is that you have some self-awareness, what you're good at and what you're not good at. And in my mind, we're all works in progress. There's no perfect human being. And if there was, that's super boring in my mind. Like, you're just done. Like, what else is there to do? So now we get into these last 2 points. This avoid reliance on external validation and listen to those worth listening to. So how do we build a system where we can train ourselves to not rely on external validation, yet we can still listen to the people that are worth listening to? It's tricky, right? So it's really a fusion of, I think, these 3 things all together. The first is that if you're introspective, you will have some sense on the things that you're good at and you're not good at already. Then, if you are getting feedback from people that maybe you think they're worth listening to, maybe you're unsure, but they're saying things that match your honest view of yourself, like your objective as you can be view of yourself. This is sort of the notion of introspection, at least in my mind. It's, introspection is honest and most objective view one can have of oneself, something like this, right? Then, if that objective view that you have yourself is being reinforced by the feedback that you're getting, this is probably a good signal that this person is worth listening to. This is possibly also a good signal that this person is someone you might want to have in your inner circle. If the feedback that they're giving you does not match with the things that you know to be true introspectively, and again, this is very hard because if you're not introspective, you don't have the ability to be honest with yourself, and a lot of people don't. I think that you're going to struggle with this. Again, it's like a chicken versus an egg thing, and I don't have all the answers here on how to achieve this. I think that it really starts with this desire to just be a better version of yourself and having the ability to be intellectually honest with who you are. And I think that if we can if we can be stoics, if we can resist the urge of allowing our emotions to control us, and instead let our rational and logical mind guide us, we can generally see the areas that we're not so good at. Like this one. This is something that I know that I need to work on, because I can view myself honestly and I don't know if I say objectively, but not in a completely subjective way. I'm looking for the things that I'm not doing well because I'm trying to make them better. And so I can zoom into this, and then I can see people that do this better than I do it, and then I can try to learn from them. So there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of interconnectedness, and the way that these final three things fit together, let me just label these, is you have some degree of introspection due to your true ability to see yourself in some sort of objective light. That's got to be you. You've got to make the decision, and it really is a decision. It's sort of like if you're an alcoholic, everybody else knows you're an alcoholic. Well, unless you're really good at hiding it, but everybody kind of knows. But do you know? And if you can't admit that you're an alcoholic, there's not much that anybody can do about this. You've got to first acknowledge the thing. You know, that's like, isn't it the 6 stages of addiction? Is the first one is denial or something? So the introspective part is really the starting point, I think. Then the next point is to go out and do the things that you need to do, and really kind of know, am I doing the right thing here? Am I growing? And doing it because you can see in your mind the things that you're doing right and you're doing wrong. And this will oftentimes allow you to filter out external factors that are not good or are good. And what's really interesting about avoiding reliance on external validation is it's not just this notion that you're doing things because you're trying to please others. It's also this notion that you may make a mistake and people may congratulate you on that mistake. And you can get caught up in believing the feedback that they're giving as a mechanism of validation, and then you going down this rabbit hole. This is where I think a lot of maybe movie stars and super famous people get sidetracked, is they start to believe that they get what I think Asmongold calls, they get audience captured, is that they start believing so much about all the praise that they're getting, they lose touch with reality. They think that they're infallible, that they can't make any mistakes. And the people that really want to make them better, they're people that are in the inner circle that actually know them, not their random super fans, are trying to give them critical feedback and say, you know, you're kind of getting a little disconnected here. You're kind of like going a little bit off the deep end. And then they just ignore all that. Like, it's really easy to use external validation, especially as you start to become, like, I don't know, more successful, or you start to do certain things that are not necessarily good, and you're getting a signal from the outside world that it is good, and being able to resist the urge to listen to that. In fact, there was a case where I was getting feedback on, I think it was some of the earlier videos, about how I was maybe being a little more biting and caustic than I liked. There's a reason for this. I don't want to get into it in this episode because we're already almost to like the 2-hour mark or something. But I didn't like it. I felt like I was coming across with a little bit too much of a chip on my shoulder, and that's not how I want to present myself. There's enough of that in the world. And so I was explaining that I need to work on this. And some of the people I was talking to were saying, no, I love it. Like just the full Goju, like let people know that like you're a force to be reckoned with. And I didn't listen to that external validation. And I think that their intentions were wholesome. I think they were just trying to like be like +1 on everything you do, Gojo. But I like to believe that I have some degree of introspection, and I was able to say, no, that's, I think that your intentions are wholesome, but I don't like that. That's not what I'm trying to do here. And I don't want to come off as caustic. There's enough people out there that are kind of playing that role that I don't know that I need to play that role. So yeah, the external validation can be many things. It can be paying too much attention to the likes on social media. It could be leaning in too hard on making sure your supervisor gives you, really appreciates you, even in ways that maybe aren't good. Could be your partner praising you on things that, again, might not be the right things. And it's going to be nuanced, right? It's going to be difficult and challenging to navigate this space. And if you lack introspection and the ability to have, uh, your own internal barometer, your own internal compass, you, I think, can be audience captured. You can end up relying too much on external validation and start to not be the best version of yourself. And I think it's really important to try to avoid this. That's my strong recommendation and conviction. And then the last piece is that while I think you should try to avoid this over reliance on external validation, it doesn't mean that you should ignore all external feedback. There are people, I think, who know us well and that are there to help us that actually are worth listening to. And it's for us to figure out who those people are. Again, I don't know that any of this is, unfortunately, cookie cutter. I don't know that there's a recipe that I can give to anyone that this always works. I think it's a case by case. And what's also really interesting about it is different people tend to be worth listening to for different things. That some people are really good at giving us advice for our careers. Other people are really good at giving us advice on how to raise kids. Other people maybe on how to get through a PhD program. And this is also part of the reason why I have on this list, seek out multiple mentors, is different people have different strengths. At least that's what I found. This piece of advice came from one of my mentors. I think this came from Morris Herlihy, is he was mentoring me and he was asking me who my mentors are. And I was telling him, well, you and these other folks. And he's like, good. You should always strive to have multiple mentors and try to have mentors that are good at different things so you can leverage their strengths to make you better. And just don't expect that you have just one person, right? And also, it's the burden that you might put that person under if you're going to like just have empathy for the person, that even if they really want to help you, they may be bandwidth constrained. And so trying to find multiple people that can help you grow, that are spread out so you can kind of cycle through them, is likely a better recipe for success. So no one feels like oversubscribed or something of that nature. And then in closing, I think once you find those people that are worth listening to, those would be people, I think, worth at least considering adding to your inner circle. And I cannot emphasize this one enough. I have seen incredible people sent in completely wrong directions, in directions that have limited their incredible potential or all the things that they could do in life simply because they surrounded themselves by people that didn't really have their best interests at heart. They wanted them to be something that they're not, and they fell too victim to this and felt like they needed that external validation, and they had them in their inner circle, and so they just started doing the stuff that they were telling them to do, and next thing you know, they've turned into things have gone awry. I've seen people be on incredible paths of life to end up being able to do amazing things, whatever those things are. Like, I'm not trying to prescribe that you should get a job and make 6 figures and that should be your ultimate goal. No. I think whatever it is that you decide is the thing that's worth pursuing, go and pursue that. I'm talking about once you figure that out and you know what it is that you want to do, finding people that really support that mission, that understand that this is what you want to do and work to enable that, not to fight against that. So one of I think easiest ones to hit into is people that overconsume on things that are not helpful. And overconsumption, admittedly, I probably have a little bit too much of overconsumption on this as I have consumed some more. And I'm saying this halfway serious, halfway joking, but there could be many more worse things that I could be consuming or doing, right? It could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be partying. It could be just laziness, could be video games, Netflix. And I'm not saying don't do those things. What I'm saying is that one of the keys to life, I think, can be moderation. At least moderation with those things. I do admittedly have a lack of balance when it comes to work. And I have some pretty strong opinions on what that looks like in order to really achieve in a way that's going to be wildly disruptive and impactful. And those views are not for everyone. I definitely am not trying to project my value system when it comes to that, because a lot of people think I'm nuts. And I think I'm nuts sometimes. So I won't even get into that on what I do in terms of my obsession for working and trying to achieve things. Because again, it's not for everyone. But I do think that there's something to be said about doing the hard thing. And oftentimes I think doing things that are going to make us better are the hard things. Like exercise, probably not a luxury thing. Eating candy bars, definitely more of a luxury thing. Learning calculus, probably a hard thing. Spending all day binge watching Netflix, not necessarily a hard thing. Learning a new programming language, probably could be a hard thing. Spending all day playing Diablo 2. I mean, yeah, if you're really bad with your character development, that could be a hard thing, but I think a lot of us would think of that as fun. So hopefully you get the higher order bit here. Understand the message that there are things that I think we know we can do that can make us better. And leaning in on those things, I think, can be helpful for us to achieve all the things that we want to achieve in life and surrounding ourselves with people that support that, not try to take away from that. Like, for example, one of the things that I remember hearing Andrew Ng talk about. Andrew Ng is uh, a very prominent figure in the deep learning space. I think he used to be a professor at Stanford. I think he's an adjunct now, and he was involved with Coursera, and I think he runs his own AI company, Landing.ai, something like this. I think maybe he was a student of Fei Li, I think. Anyway, I think a lot of people respect some of the things that Andrew says, and he was giving advice on learning machine learning. This is, at least when I heard this, this was maybe in the 2019, 2018, 2019 days. And he was saying, how do you do this if machine learning isn't your job? Like, how do you get involved? And his advice, which was, I think, on point. And again, it might not be the thing that people want to hear, but I think listen to those that are worth listening to. Andrew was saying most people don't work on the weekends, so spend your weekends learning machine learning. I mean, how bad do you want it? Right. And again, I understand some people have families, some people have other commitments. I understand all those things. Being able to really achieve greatness oftentimes is about sacrifice. And what are you willing to sacrifice? And there's no judgments here. Like, if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, that's fine. But I do think if you can have an honest conversation with yourself and really understand what you are doing and not giving up, and the kind of impact that that is or is not having on your life goals, that's I think the most important thing to understand. So then when you get to hopefully your final days in life, you can look back and say, I lived the life that I wanted to live. I feel like I did the things that I wanted to do. And at least for me personally, that's going to be enough. Like, I know I've got a pretty good sense of what I think those things are. And I personally feel like I'm on the right path for those. And I don't really care as much about, I'm not wildly driven by outcome. I'm more driven by the journey, that the effort, the direction. That as long as I'm moving in the right direction, that jives with my internal barometer, my internal ethos, whatever the outcome is, I'm probably going to be fine with it. Like, I really wanted to create a machine programming company, and we're doing that now. And I think that we needed investors. I didn't know who exactly those would be. And so as long as they're world-class people that I feel like will be on the same mission that I'm on and my team's on, I think it'll be fine. And so I don't need it to be Andreessen or Sequoia or whoever. It can be, just people of high caliber. On the other hand, there are other things that I do kind of have my mindset on, and I'm set on those things for very particular reasons. So there's other areas where it's like, no, I really, like, for example, I really like to be in Silicon Valley, mostly because I find personally this is more my people. I don't mean it like an elitist thing. For the longest time before I came to Silicon Valley, which was maybe like 15 years ago, I used to hear people talk about Silicon Valley and think, oh, it's so pretentious. And like, oh, the Silicon Valley snobs, blah, blah, blah. And then I came out here and yeah, I mean, sure, there are some there might be people for sure. I think you're going to get that maybe anywhere. But what I found is that there were a lot of people out here that had a similar mindset to me, but helped me grow in ways that were going to be very hard to do if I didn't have this community. This is part of the reason why I spend time over at this place. Is I find there's a lot of like-minded people at that institution that I can learn from and that energize me because they want to do similar things. And I like that. That is motivating to me. It's inspiring to me. And when I think you're trying to have incredible impact, it's hard. It's very easy to quit. And being around other like-minded people that also want to make the world a better place and do things that are moving us forward, that can help us, right? That can be a breath of fresh air, so to speak. So with that, I feel like we've had a great discussion, and I'm going to assemble these videos and drop this on Goju Tech Talk. Hopefully this all comes together nicely. I guess we'll find out shortly. But hopefully this adds a little bit more clarity into what I kind of mean with these virtues. And just to reiterate, I think asking questions can be a wonderful technique and a key to growing for so many people, for so many things. And it's changed my life. And this I learned from other people. And I'm so glad that I was blessed to have people help me learn to do this. Once we can ask questions, then I think that you may be able to get feedback and you may be able to learn things, and then you can try to coalesce this with your introspection, assuming that you have it. And introspection, I think, is one of those things that you can do on your own. You just, I think, have to have an honest conversation with yourself. And it can be hard, but I think if you can do it, that this is one of the fastest ways to grow. And when you couple these two things together, I think you're on a really fast path to growing and becoming better. And then in the final two pieces is to try to resist this urge, I think, especially in today's society with overload of social media, that everything we do is made for being accepted by other people. I think that doing things because we know it's right for us and knowing that we have a good internal ethos, I think is, as we reach this level of enlightenment, I think that is, in many cases, the only thing that we really need. Is we can look at ourselves in the mirror and say, yeah, I had a good day today. I grew a little bit. I learned some stuff about the origins of the number 0 and the foundations of mathematics and algebra. And I'm super grateful, right? Like, and I don't need anybody to tell me that I did a good thing. I just need to be able to look at myself and have that introspection and then give myself that feedback. And then finally, when you couple that with finding that inner circle that actually wants you to become the better version of yourself, it can be, I think, very important to listen to those people that actually want to make you better, that believe in you. And I would say, hold on to those people. Like, go out of your way to make sure those people feel very valued and respected, so you don't lose them. I've been lucky enough to have many people in my life that have been guiding me for some time, And I really do everything I can to keep them in my inner circle. And I feel blessed that they're with me every day. And the truth is, and this is probably going to sound a little, I don't know, sappy or something, but part of doing GTT was to get more people like this. And in fact, there are already some viewers who are quickly becoming people like that for me. And I love it that finding like-minded travelers that I can learn from, that can make me better, and we can all grow together. That's manna from heaven, as my professor Hal Gabo used to say. So with that, thanks everybody. Merrily speed.